Another placid summer day was drifting by. Your daydreams were chasing each other, none sticking around long enough to become a firm plan. But you really didn't mind that right now. I gotta close my door. A tapping worked its way into those dreams. Focusing more, you realized it was coming from your window. A grin popped on your face as though it had been waiting all day for this moment. Heading to the window, you could see Cove outside. His habit of climbing this way really was a true Cove-ism. He'd rather scale your house than wait the couple extra minutes for you to come down. You stood aside to give him space. You had held a hand out to him. You offered Cove a hand to help him. Once he was mostly inside, he took it to help steady the last bit of his entrance. Though considering how many times he'd done this, he hardly needed the help.
Hey.
Hey, Jamie. Hey to you. You think my moms should invest in some bigger windows? Cove laughed at that and took one last look at his exclusive entrance. He hummed with a teasing look on his face. Maybe. Cove's voice came out quietly, with a strangely pleased smile on his face. Did something happen? Cove opened his mouth to answer, only to have your phone ringing cut him off. You both turned to where it rested a little further up on your bed. It was still face down, so you couldn't tell who was calling. It's okay. Your attention shot back to Cove. He smiled at you awkwardly.
Don't worry about it.
Go check. It could be important. I'll wait. Thanks. You shuffled forward and scooped the little noisemaker into your hand. You flipped it over and checked the caller ID. It's Miranda. You should answer it. I want to say hi too. With a nod, you accepted the call and set it to speaker. Hi, Miranda. Hi. There was something off about her tone. Cove met your gaze, and you saw the same confusion in his expression.
Have you heard from Terry?
Have you heard from Terry at all? Or did you hear about her from Cove? Huh? No, she hasn't called me, but Cove is with me right now. Hey. Oh, hi, Cove. Is that what you were going to say? He shook his head no, before realizing that it wasn't a good enough answer when one person couldn't actually see it.
No.
No, Terry hasn't called me today either. Is something wrong? At that, Miranda couldn't hold herself together any longer. The muffled sobs from the other side of the line were unmistakable. Terry doesn't like me anymore. If she ever did. What? That doesn't sound right. You're probably her best friend out of all of us. Yeah, why do you think that? She sniffled, and there was a pause as you could hear her shift the phone to her other hand. Terry was here the other night watching movies with me. We were up super late. She realized her parents probably went to bed, so they couldn't pick her up. My mom and dad were definitely asleep then. Dad works early. I tried telling her it was okay to just spend the night and she could text her parents what happened, but Terry really didn't want to. You glanced at Cove. He looked equally unsure as you about where this story was going. It didn't sound like a friendship-ending situation. I suggested things to make it easier if she was nervous, like she could sleep by herself in my room while I stayed somewhere else. Yeah? And I said we didn't have to sleep at all. We could have kept watching movies until one of our parents woke up. I wouldn't have minded. I know not everyone can do sleepovers, but Terry wouldn't even tell me what was really wrong or what I could do to help. I thought we could tell each other anything. I guess I was wrong. Did she stay in the end? No. We got too loud in the kitchen and my dad woke up. He offered to drive her home when he heard what was wrong. She texted me apologizing for my dad having to do that when he needed rest, but that was it. She isn't talking to me anymore. You could hear every bit of the tears and heartbreak in Miranda's voice. This continued to be a shock for your neighbor, but Cove recovered and spoke gently. I'm really sorry.
I mean...
There's no way Terry wanted to make you feel this bad, or that she's done with your friendship because of this. Miranda, sniffing, continued. You hoped she had plenty of tissues handy. It'll be okay. I hope Terry is alright. It's really weird that she reacted like that. It's not a big deal, honestly. You weren't sure what to say. It's really weird that she reacted like that. You couldn't wrap your mind around it. This seems so unlike Terry, and maybe that's why it was bothering Miranda so much. Miranda's voice sounded a little bit more collected after finishing her story, but you knew that the crying was far from being done. I thought she'd have reached out to one of you by now. Maybe she's not talking to anyone. Yeah. Sorry for bothering you and Cove about this. Hey, we're here for you.
Right.
Right. You can tell us things. Thank you. Her shaking voice finally conveyed a little optimism, or at least relief that she wasn't dealing with it entirely on her own.
Is that all right?
If you do hear from her or anything, could you let me know if she's alright? We can. Thanks. Let's talk later, okay? Bye. 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 That didn't really seem like an especially productive point to end the call, though you also weren't sure where to go from there. Looking to Cove, his face seemed as lost as yours. With no alternative, you hung up and put your phone back on your bed. Cove crossed his arms, a frown creasing his face. He began to pace the length of your room, clearly trying to put the pieces together in his head in a way that made sense. You were worried. You felt pretty confident about this working out well. It sounded like trouble to you. You weren't sure how to react. You were worried. Biting the inside of your cheek, you stared at the ground. Hearing Miranda so distraught like that was not easy. And what about Terry? The uncertainty was tearing you up. The empty state of your head before learning this was not helping you now. You couldn't put two thoughts together, and flopping back on your bed, you stared into space. We should probably try calling Terry. Cove's voice managed to drag you back to some grounding. He'd stopped pacing, but you still saw a perturbed look on his face. Yeah, I'm worried about her too. You bounced up and moved to his side, ready to act on whatever plan you two could come up with. Cove started with the easiest thing. He pulled out his phone and called Terry. Cove let it ring, and ring, and ring, and ring. Terry didn't answer. There wasn't even an option to leave a voice message. Your shoulders slumped, and Cove looked even more troubled. If that was possible, he turned to you as if for some lifeline. Could you try calling? Could you try calling? I'm gonna send a text, just like, hey, I was trying to reach you, call me, or something. Yeah. You took up your phone once more. Unfortunately, after another set of interminable rings, the line went dead. No answer, no voicemail. Hanging up, you saw Cove visibly deflate. He rubbed his arm, eyes distant, openly struggling with the whole affair. I don't like this at all. They're fighting. We barely know anything. And we're supposed to just wait and see? Despite it only being a minute since he texted Terry, Cove checks his phone again. He was desperate for progress, for something, and you frowned as you watched him. You need to try to relax. You're making me anxious. There's no way Terry has answered you. They're gonna get over it, you know. He stayed silent. You're making me anxious. Cove stared hard at the screen as though he was trying to will a new message to appear. As your words sank in, he forlornly let his gaze fall to the side. Cove's voice came out so small and quiet that you would have missed it if he hadn't already taken your full attention. Sorry. You nodded slowly. Cove closed his eyes, letting out a sigh as though trying to clear away pressure from inside his chest. Glancing at your own phone in vain, you considered sending a text message to, if that would even help. This was making you feel all twisted up. You could see the same sort of discomfort on Cove's face. There was something consoling in that, at least. Words drifted from his mouth like a feeble breeze. It'll be fine. It's gonna be okay. Yeah. You could hear it in both of your voices how much you wanted to give and receive reassurance. You tried to believe the sentiments, weak as they were. Should we... What do we even say if we do hear from one of them? His pacing resumed as he attempted to answer his own question. But it was written all over his face that he had no idea how to tackle any of this. He slowly came to another halt, like a gear winding down. We should find out Terry's side of the story. We should just comfort Miranda and let up with Terry. I don't know. We should only tell them to work it out between themselves, that's it. I wonder why you always had to come up with things. You didn't say anything. We should find out Terry's side of the story. Nothing could be done until you knew what she thought of this. That much was certain. Cove nodded slightly in agreement. For several minutes, you both remained there in silence, drowning in your thoughts. Eventually, Cove turned around. I'm gonna text Terry that we already know what's going on. Maybe she'll have an easier time talking to us because she won't have to pretend or explain. Yeah, that might be the only way to get her attention. You can't do that. Miranda didn't say it was alright to admit she talked to us. You felt way too overwhelmed to know what to say next. Yeah, that might be the only way to get her attention. With the two of you on the same page, he steals his gaze to prepare for taking the next step. Cove's fingers worked furiously yet carefully. He was giving his full attention to his words, You sidled up next to him and looked, trying to watch what he was writing. Cove rapidly typed out, "Hey, Jamie and I really want to talk to you. Miranda told us what happened. Please reply back." And sent. It was done. We'll just have to see what happens now. Quietly, you felt nervous. I wish you weren't so concerned with everyone else's feelings but mine. It'll definitely be alright, Cove. Things are okay. Yeah, hopefully she gets back to us pretty soon. Great, can we do something else now? You're being dramatic. Yeah, hopefully she gets back to us pretty soon. Me too. From just his face, you could tell that wasn't going to do much for him. He was going to be stuck thinking about this until Terry replied. A small noise escaped his lips. All the frustration at the situation crumbled away from his face, and he spoke softly. Thanks, Jamie. I'm glad it's not just me with all this happening. Cove took one last look at his phone and then put it away. His effort at a smile was meager but earnest.
It's okay.
We can just forget about it for a while. Terry will talk to us when she wants to. You smiled just a little bit, finally. That sounds good to me. I like to be alone for a while. Could you leave? That sounds good to me. And you meant it, exhaling some of your own concern away. The last thing you wanted was to fight with Cove. A silence stretched on in what felt like hours, but it likely wasn't that long before there was a knock at your bedroom door, and Mom peeked in. Just wanted to check in on you. Oh, Cove, when did you get here? When she saw you were there, she opened the door all the way. Mom was standing there as well. She slipped past her wife to come inside your space. What's going on? We're okay. It's just Miranda called earlier. She and Terry are fighting, but none of us know what's going on with Terry. Your parents exchanged a meaningful look, though its meaning was lost on you.
I am so sorry.
That's too bad. I'm sorry there's trouble with your friends, sweetie. Is there anything we can do to help? Out of the corner of your eye, you saw Cove rub his arm awkwardly, unable to add anything. No, we're just waiting to see if Terry calls or texts or if Miranda does. Well, we can at least help you take your mind off of things while you're waiting.
Yeah.
Another great idea, Lonnie. We can get the whole gang together for some quality time. Mom gave you a soft smile and added, This'll be good, especially since it might help make up for what happened at the farmer's market. Yeah, it'll be wonderful. I'll go see what Liz is up to right now. Excited, she fluttered a few steps away and then stopped. She pivoted on her heels and raised a single finger, flashing a big smile at Cove.
It's no trouble.
And of course, Cliff will be welcome too. Knowing your family was always there for you, that couldn't be underestimated. In fact, it meant everything to you that your moms cared so much. I really appreciate this. Thank you. Yeah, thanks. That's nice of you.
You're welcome.
You're both very welcome. Don't sweat it. Not so kiddos. Leave things to us. Just relax and we'll call you when it's all together. You nodded and your moms dispersed for now, springing into action for their impromptu get-together. You flopped down on your bed, feeling like you could sink into it and disappear. Cove, meanwhile, took a spot on a chair off to the side. You sighed at the same time, and Cove's mouth pulled into a bent smile. At that, he gave his phone another quick check, and his eyebrows furrowed. Still nothing? Yep. This is crap, huh? Yep. Cove chewed the inside of his cheek, as if to mimic the stress that was clearly eating away at him. Cove, what's wrong? What's really wrong? One disagreement doesn't make you act like this. That got a pointed pause in his movement. Cove was carefully trying to put his thoughts together. He spoke in a fragile voice. Sorry. When people you care about, when they're unhappy with each other, there's nothing you can do. At least when you're in a fight yourself. You have some responsibility, some control over it all. I wish it didn't have to happen, but that isn't possible, so, oh well, I guess. His attempt at giving a nonchalant shrug after that was pitiable. Yeah, it makes me feel horrible too. True, but you're right that it can't be helped. It's whatever. Other people can do what they want, right? Yeah, it makes me feel horrible too. In your lap, your hands momentarily curled into fists. This kind of powerlessness, it wore you down. You looked to Cove and were reassured by his understanding nod. There was a question you had to ask. Is it because of what happened with your parents? Cove ran a hand through his hair, a strange smile spreading across his lips. For him, this pain struck close to his heart. Just as quickly as it had come, his smile was gone, lost amidst his faraway gaze. Yeah, you got it. It's like my parents. Despite knowing him for so many years, Cove had never spoken of the years before he moved to Sunsetburg, before his parents separated, in any detail. He whispered his thoughts distantly, almost unconcerned with whether you could hear them or not. They used to fight all the time. I think they got along when I was a baby. I mean, they had to have wanted to be with each other at some point. But when I was old enough to remember anything, it was already bad. There was always something wrong, and I could never help. I just wanted them to be happy. You tried to imagine your moms breaking up, and the very idea scared you. But Cove had endured that for real. I'm sorry.
Jamie.
Jamie.
Don't worry about it.
It's okay. Despite that revelation, Cove gazed reassuringly at you. It's not like that anymore. Things are so different now. I don't even really think about it. Again, the sorrow reasserted itself. When he continued, you could barely hear him. Though, I guess it's pretty obvious I haven't forgotten either. You crossed the room, picking up a little bit of speed, and Cove's eyes widened. He shot out of the chair and stood waiting for you with a nonplussed look. When you collided into him, wrapping your arms around his neck and covering his mouth with yours, all mystery was gone. Cove squeaked against your lips. But when the situation struck him fully, he responded in turn. Cove used his hands to grip the back of your head. He pulled you in tighter, buoying you up further. After a brief parting to get some air into your lungs, he kissed you again longingly. Without hesitation, you both needed the comfort and closeness for just a little bit longer. When he finally did stop the kiss, he kept hold of your hand. The two of you took a seat again, this time side by side on your bed. Today was a lot, huh? Yeah, it was. You leaned against him, resting the side of your head onto his shoulder. You glanced up at his face. Cove watched you affectionately. In that gentle gaze, you finally felt like everything was going to be okay. No matter what happens, we can make it work. His mouth pulled into a bent smile at that. You chuckled, resting your head comfortably back on his shoulder.
Me too.
I think so too. He couldn't sit still anymore. Cove leaned in, delicately pressing his lips to your forehead to kiss you once again. He raised one free hand to lightly touch your jaw. Despite having just initiated one yourself, a breath got caught in your throat at being touched that way. When you remembered to breathe, blood rushed to your face, turning your skin a deep red. You tried not to think about how hot you were feeling, because after everything that happened today, you were just grateful for the moment. And for a while you stayed like that. A comfortable quiet fell between you, and the sun fell with it. Warm and calm ended when Cove gasped sharply. You spun, half expecting to find him nursing an injury, but instead found him staring straight ahead. What?
Oh my god.
I think my phone just vibrated. Check it out. Right. He patted his pockets, fumbling in his panic, and yanked the phone out. The force of the action nearly catapulted the device out of his grip entirely, but he caught it just in time. His eyes honed in on the screen. It's Terry! Thank God! She said she's sorry. He looked back to you, his eyes wide as his nerves started to fray once more.
Bonnie.
What should I say? I don't know. Give it a second. I need to think. Tell her to call us. Ask her what's going on. Ask if she's talking to Miranda. You climbed up. Tell her to call us. Okay. He nodded and began typing. Cove was aware that his blunt words could sometimes make others bristle, even though he never meant them to hurt. Cove's phone buzzed nearly as soon as the message was sent. It's Terry again. She's talking to us. She asked about what Miranda said, but wait. You leaned in, watching the conversation unfold on Cove's screen.
Right.
She's gonna actually call. Cove held his breath as he waited. His circle of friends had always been small, so he'd managed to avoid the stress of seeing friends fighting. You suspected he was feeling this even more keenly, both because this was so uncommon and the friend so important to him. His phone rang out. Cove jammed the answer button. He switched the phone into speaker mode, allowing you to participate in the conversation. But despite his immediate reaction, his voice lacked the same resolve when he spoke. Hey! It was tentative, a white flag fluttering in the wind. Jamie is here too. Hi, we've been worried about you.
Hey.
Hey, buddies. Terry's voice was barely recognizable without her usual quick patter and energy.
Are you okay?
Are things okay? I don't know. Probably not. Cove tensed, his free hand cooling into an anxious fist. What happened? Don't know already? Miranda explained some of it, but it doesn't make sense to us. You heard Terry sigh over the phone as she unburdened herself. Pretty much, I was at Randy's house. We decided to watch some movies. She super liked that. I'd never even seen before. Turns out there's a lot of those. We watched one, then another, and another. We were having so much fun. Each time one finished, she had another one to share with me. I didn't really think about the time. I only wanted to say yes to Randy and watch her movies. She spoke wistfully, but her words full of affection. It was Randy, you know. I wasn't thinking about my schedule or what time it was. I get it. Then I finally saw the time and oh no, it was way too late. I already knew I couldn't stay. She took a deep breath, her voice becoming softer when she resumed talking. I was so stressed out, I just couldn't deal with it. Miranda wanted to help. She kept coming up with ways to make it better and trying to figure out why I was so upset and stuff. I was trying to answer her questions, and there were so many, but I couldn't really answer all of them. I didn't even know why so many of her ideas didn't work with me. It made my head ache. I still had the first problem and Randy there, trying to help, blasting all these questions and suggestions at me faster than I could even think. She gulped audibly, sniffing. I got frustrated and told her to just leave me alone. But then she wanted to talk about why I wanted that. And we started having a fight in the kitchen. It woke Randy's dad up. We told him about how I wanted to go home, but my parents couldn't get me, so Mr. Eckert offered to do it. That's nice of him. Terry groaned. I know. I accepted, because I definitely couldn't stay then. Not after throwing a racket and turning it into a big deal. But I feel awful and embarrassed. Why did I yell at Randy and hurt her feelings? And I made her dad lose sleep by waking him up and having to drive me home. What do you say after that? I have no idea. I don't know where to start, and I don't want to make it worse by saying the wrong thing and fighting again. So, I'm not talking. Terry, Randy isn't mad that you didn't want to stay or that you fought. She just wants to feel like you can talk to her. I mean, you can say whatever you want. She'll listen. I'm not talking to her at all is pretty much the only wrong way to go about it. Terry lamented mournfully on the other end of the line, but he had a point. Unless she faced Miranda again, there would be no resolution. He looked at Cove, hunched over the phone, staring pensively into it, and searching for a solution. This couldn't be solved with the other key party missing, but what if you brought them in? Your phone was still free. You suggested calling up Miranda now. What if we called Miranda? That way you could talk to her, but wouldn't have to do it alone. Cove brightened up, the concerned furrow in his brow, which had taken root when Miranda first called, eased.
Well,
that could work. Terry, are you up for it? She made a noise that wasn't a word, but nevertheless conveyed her hesitation and worry. But she brought it to a close with a decisive exhalation, as if pushing all negative thoughts from her body. All right, I'll do it. Cove nodded. Now that you'd received approval from everyone, you pulled out your phone and called Miranda. You set it to speaker and waited for her to pick up. Luckily, she did. Hi, Jamie. Her voice was still distant, as if her thoughts were elsewhere, but it was loud enough for your needs. Hi, you're on speaker. Terry is on speaker too, on Cove's phone. Oh. She paused while she digested this information. You watched the phone screen, hoping that she wouldn't hang up as a result.
Really?
Oh, really? Yep. It's really me. Can you hear my voice all the way from your house to theirs and then mine? I can. You and Cove exchanged looks, waiting for the wall between them to break, and wondering who would be the one to do it. As the quiet dragged on, you caught Cove chewing his cheek. He must have weighed up the same question as you, whether to encourage the conversation along or leave Miranda and Terry to resolve it themselves. The answer came in the form of one sniff, followed by another from Cove's phone. Sorry, Randy. I hope you still like me. What? You were the one acting as if you didn't like me? Her tone was defensive, no doubt a result of her wounds from last night still being raw.
What?
No way! Everyone likes Randy. You're wonderful. Your eyes met Cove's. His phone was tilted towards you, capturing the call indirectly. You moved your phone closer to his, hoping that the signal was strong enough to convey every nuance of tone. Cove did likewise, bringing his cell right next to yours, even bumping against it as he shifted his grip. I didn't know what to say. That's the only reason I wouldn't talk to you. If I had known the answer, I'd have told you right away. Miranda murmured on the other end of the line. You didn't want to stay? Anything I tried to do bothered you, and you could have told me you didn't know. Yeah, I think I was angry at myself. I did a dumb thing, and I didn't want to help with it. I wanted to be mad and just deal with it myself. It made me keep doing dumb things. Oh. When she spoke again, her voice was quiet, as tender and vulnerable as the words.
I'm sorry.
Staying up late watching stuff was all my fault. I had to find a way to fix it. That's what I thought anyway. But I should have given you space. I'm sorry for being so pushy and sensitive. Hardly. Miranda echoed, having a flaw? I've never heard of such a crazy thing. Miranda let out a ghost of a giggle. Cove cleared his throat. Maybe you should call each other now. Sorry.
Sure.
Can do. Thanks for giving me the kick in the butt to do this already. Randy, Mandy, I'm gonna call you right now. Bye, Jamie and Cove. She hung up after squeezing in another quick bye, though not giving you or Cove room to respond in kind. Miranda laughed, the noise tinkling gently like wind chimes in a summer breeze.
You're really nice.
Thank you for listening and helping. I'm gonna hang up now so I can answer Terry's call. Bye. 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 Talk to you soon. Miranda hung up, still chuckling softly as your call ended. The room felt emptier without the other voices in it. Cove expelled a sigh that crashed through the newly fallen silence. He dropped his arms to his sides, letting his head hang down like a puppet at rest. Thank God. You were simply happy that your friends had made up. The day's events had drained you. You were content now, but Cove seemed at ease again. I'm so relieved it's okay. Cove scratched at his face, his expression cloudy. I think I need to find better ways for dealing with conflict because that was awful. We could all probably do better at that. I think you did okay, given the circumstances. Cove meekly smiled as he rubbed his eyes, weariness creeping over him, and mumbled his next words. We can talk about it another day. Conflict resolution methods? Huh? Oh no, forget it. Your eyebrows rose and then a light bulb went off in your head. Before Miranda called, didn't you say there was something you'd wanted to say? Cove's original visit had been thrown so off kilter that it was a struggle to wind your memory back to when he'd first turned up. Now you did, though you remembered that he had been perky when he'd arrived this afternoon. Was it good news? Cove pressed his hands against his now folded arms shyly. Well, yeah. Maybe. I'm not exactly sure it counts as news or even good. It is what it is. I'm happy about it, though. You were curious, but you didn't want to push Cove if he didn't want to speak about it. You don't have to say anything, but if it makes you feel good, I think it is good news. Cove chuckled awkwardly, a hand creeping up to ruffle the hair on the back of his head. It's fine. If you want to hear, I can tell you. He shifted on his feet, as if different posture might give him the support he needed for the conversation. I didn't want to make it a big deal, but I I just know what my sexuality is now. Oh? A real subject change, huh? He chuckled. True. It was unexpected, but you were excited that Cove had come to understand himself more, and glad he wanted to share that with you. That's great. Tell me more. Cove drew a breath, straightening up. I'm demisexual. So, most of the time, I don't really have those kinds of feelings, physical wants and stuff. It's only in some situations, when I'm already really emotional and romantically connected to someone, that I start to ever think about anything sexual, and it's only with them. I hadn't heard the term until pretty recently, and it just made a lot of sense. Once I knew what it meant, I had a word that fit how I felt.
Yeah.
And I'm pan-romantic. 'Cause I've never had a preference for a specific gender or anything. So yeah. That makes sense. Cove looked down at the floor, being so open and direct about a matter that's that personal, which you were sure he'd spent a long time trying to figure out, seemed to be kind of weird for him. Despite that, there was a small, proud smile on his face, and when he looked up again, his gaze was steadfast. That's really nice to know. Have I ever pushed you or made you feel uncomfortable? So does that mean you're thinking sexual things about me? You felt proud of your boyfriend. It's really nice to know. Have I ever pushed you or made you feel uncomfortable? Cove shook his head easily. No. I overthink things and I get embarrassed about stuff. But you know how I am. When I actually don't want to do something, it's pretty hard to make me. That was definitely true of Cove. He had proven many times over the years that he wasn't afraid to dig in his heels. I like what we do together, and, so I'd be glad if that didn't stop. There Cove went, getting bashful about things again. But you felt good, And you could feel that way because he was feeling good too. Okay, thanks for answering. All this talk of co-sexuality made you reflect about your own. Your feelings on yours hadn't wavered. Your feelings on yours hadn't wavered. Cove had known for years now. It was heartwarming that he had reached a point where he felt similarly capable of discussing his own. You felt even closer. You felt his tiredness deep in the marrow of your bones. It had been a trying day. Now everything was neatly wrapped up for today, at least, and you had earned a rest. You had some good talks and come out of it not only knowing each other better, but yourself too.
Hey.
Hey, we should probably head downstairs now. If your moms are still wanting everyone to get together. Yeah, that's right. With a renewed spring in your step, you led the way out of your room. You got downstairs to find the others already assembled and waiting.
Hi.
Hello. Hi. Good to see you both.
Hey!
Hi. Here we were, trying to corral everyone into our group. But the two of you were already upstairs this whole time? Of course we were together. You paid Jamie to stick with me. Or did you forget? The statement was meaningless to your family, who looked to each other for answers in vain. Mr. Holden, who got the message loud and clear, seemed embarrassed. He chuckled nervously, rubbing the back of his neck. Ouch, son. You always know when to remind me of that one. Uh-huh. I can't let you live it down yet. Can we hear exactly what this secret is? The suspense is killing us.
Right.
Alright. I better get everyone up to speed. He held up his hands, palms out, pacifying his audience, or perhaps holding them up as a shield in advance. The first day I met Jamie, I'd been worrying about Cole being alone for the summer.
Well,
There weren't a lot of kids around, and he wasn't exactly on the best terms with me at the time. He glanced around at your family, gouging their responses. I felt like this was my only shot, so I kind of offered her $20 to be friends with Cove, and added that she couldn't tell him about it. Liz gasped. Ma was staring incredulously at Mr. Holden, while Mom's eyebrows had retreated to her hairline. You and Cove, already knowing the story, were the only ones unaffected. But after a while, I really did honestly forget it even happened. He raised his hands higher, now level with his shoulders. Not a bad idea, you thought. If Mom felt inclined to throw a cushion at him, he'd probably manage to block it in time. I know that's bad, but I've had so many grand ideas over the years, it's hard to keep track of them all. Cove smiled, placing his hands on his hips and shaking his head at his father's antics.
Seriously?
I can't believe you. Though also, I totally can. Your moms were less indulgent. The shock had ebbed away to displeasure. Mom's foot was tapping rapidly as she frowned at the next door neighbor, while Ma had her arms crossed over her chest and her lips pursed. I'm sorry, Jamie. And I'm sorry to your parents too. That was way out of bounds. Don't worry about it. Everything worked out. Your moms gave each other that look where they seemed to communicate with eyes alone. Alright, well, that's that then, and it won't happen again.
Absolutely.
It definitely won't. Good. It was a little surprising that they were letting him off the hook. But on the other hand, it was a long time ago now, and you were sure your moms remembered those painful early days of Cove's arrival too. Mr. Holden was a potential bad influence anymore, so a lecture would be pretty moot. Instead, your ma gave him a lenient smile.
In that case,
Now that it's settled, why don't we find something to do? Nods of agreement cascaded through the group, and a couple waves at the suggestion. Mr. Holden's shoulders slumped with a release of tension. He brought his hands down, tucking them away into his pockets. How about cards? There was a murmur of interest from the others. You were keen to play. That was fine with you. You'd play along with the others. You didn't really want to play cards. That was fine with you. Most of the group was eager to play, but Mr. Holden was demurring. I think I'll sit this one out. Where's the fun in that? Join in. We're not too angry with you. Yes, and I know there's a lot of people, but we can make it work. Mr. Holden shrunk into himself, embarrassed by their attention. Dad, you love playing cards. We do it at our house all the time. Dad? Mr. Holden broke under the combined force of everyone's attention. Cove, you're an adult now. You deserve to know the truth. I used to throw the card game so you could win. I put up a good fight, but I always made sure to lose a lot more rounds than I won. He toyed with the end of his ponytail, clearly distressed at the second great secret he was revealing today. I know people want to be taken seriously, and fake wins don't mean as much, but I couldn't help myself. It's so much better when everyone else got the chance to be victorious. Kira knew and went along with it. Cove laughed in disbelief that this was the thing his dad stressed about hiding after the other stunts he pulled over the years. So what? Lots of parents do that. I hadn't guessed it. Sure, though looking back it makes sense. That's right. What's the big deal, Cliff? You can finally take the kid gloves off and give them a run for their money. Maybe even actually money in your case. Mr. Holden smiled coyly, his gaze lowering. I'm not sure that's a good idea.
why?
And why not? He waved his hands expansively, the movements fluid and vague. It's just, actually, I am something of a card shark. I used to make lots of fast cash off games. Casual players don't have a shot unless it's a game of pure luck. Cove's jaw hung open, his wide eyes fixed on his father. Really? There was a touch of amazement, even admiration, nestled among the shock. The other members of the Thompson family exchanged looks, ranging from Liz's disbelief to Mom's intrigue, with Ma somewhere in the middle between the two. You can't simply make a claim like that and expect us to go along with it. Let's see you back it up, Shark Man. Mr. Holden gave her a crooked smile, his demureness quickly being replaced with the confidence of someone very skilled or very misguided. You sure about that? Definitely. We've gotta see this so-called non-casual player in action. Well, I might be able, though who knows? Maybe I've gotten rusty. His coyness continued to rile the gang up, and he was getting a kick out of it now.
Please?
Come on, please?
Alright.
Alright. I can dust off the old tricks. Great! Cove beamed his father while Mom clapped Mr. Holden on the back. Liz darted off to get a deck of cards while the rest of you settled in for the game. Hands were dealt. Mr. Holden wasted no time proving his words true, wiping the floor with all of you. You played several rounds, even switching games, but none of you were a match for him. That was how the alliance came to be forged. The rest of you joined forces against Mr. Holden only just to try increasing the odds of beating him. With your combined efforts, you pulled out a few victories, yet it was still a challenge. He was clearly a professional. If these were his skills now, rusty with disuse, you couldn't even imagine what a deadly opponent he had been in the past. Despite that, you still had fun. Working cooperatively actually fostered a sense of camaraderie with the others. Mr. Holden didn't appear fazed by this strategy. You actually wondered whether the increased challenge made it more interesting for him. You spent the rest of the afternoon together with your family and the Holdens, having fun. It was an interesting evening for sure, with many discoveries for everyone. It was freeing, and yet simultaneously you felt more tied together than you had been before. And I'm going to save there. And in the episode there. Thank you all for joining me. Ah, my hand is stiff as a board. Thank you all for joining me. It's been fun. That was a fun little episode. Bye. Peace out.